100% focused on only the things that were going to get me to success and nothing else. So I was 100% focused on training, nutrition, sleep, and managing my stress.
Welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark. This is episode 19 with Ann Gaffigan, Focusing the Journey, part 2 of 2. Ann is a former American record holder in the 2,000 and 3,000 meter steeplechase. She ran the steeplechase at the University of Nebraska, and she won the 2004 Olympic trials when the event was just an exhibition for women. And after competitive running and ending her career in 2008, she co-founded the website Women Talk Sports and started her own web development company, Gazelle Incorporated, and has been doing that since 2004. I love discussing with Ann how managing stress and focusing on things that bring success, best self and self-care, and facing adversity. And she had many things along the way, and many things possibly hold her up, but she kept moving along. You'll love this final episode with Ann Gaffigan, 19-2 of 2.
All the new information and experience that you have.
Yeah.
You may end up here, you may end up here. You know, who knows? But
Yeah,
why limit yourself to this destination if it ends up not being the right one for you?
I never looked at it that way. And it's really unique because I do like to tell people when I was, from the time I was 22, let's say 23, until the time I went into the World Series at 25 in 1995, I moved, I think, 19 times in that time. So when you talk about the way,
Wow.
like the way to a world championship went through 19 different cities.
You couldn't have planned that.
You can't plan that. Like, you're like, oh, you know what I should do next? You know what the next opportunity is for me on my way?
Yeah.
It didn't feel like the next opportunity sometimes, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I want to talk to you about that I thought you were really, that probably, this is, when you're losing, it's stressful. It's not good, right? When things are going your direction. One of the things you said kind of really hit me is like managing stress. It's very important in the game. It's very important in your path. Let's talk a little bit about that. What was the intent and what's your mindset for that?
Yeah, well, I mean, at that point in my life, my stress would come from school mostly. And, you know, some personal life stuff too, but mostly from school and balancing that with training like a competitive elite athlete. It's really hard. You know, it's, I don't think if you haven't done it, it's really hard to understand how hard it is to be a student athlete. It's really difficult. And so my stress came from that, and managing it meant being completely on top of my game from a time management standpoint.
Yes.
You know, as soon as you get an assignment, you start working on it, because if you leave it to the last second, that's how you stay up till 3 a.m., which is how you have a crappy workout the next day, which is how you get sick. And so, you know, you had to stay on top of your day and use every minute in a way that was effective. And honestly, it's very difficult. I knew that I could do it for a semester, right? But then, like, if you're trying to do that 365 days a year, you know, it's a fast track to burnout, because it's so, you have to be so disciplined. And in life, I think, you know, I have to manage that too, because life can get very busy when you add family to it, and friends and career, and, you know, all of your personal goals and stuff. Children, yes, absolutely. You have to make sure that you're not letting yourself get overwhelmed, and that you're also reacting to everything appropriately. You know, sometimes I can identify that I'm overreacting to stuff, and it's because my bandwidth is stretched really thin. And you just got to figure out, okay, what are you wasting energy on and time on that needs to drop right now? And really getting disciplined about that.
I think it's one of the toughest things about women leaders, right? You know, you get, obviously, leadership, more responsibility, right? And like women already don't have enough, right? Like let's add on a few other layers, you know, of this thing. And it's just, there's nothing easy about it. I had Jim Ayers on the show. He's the former president of Amway North America. And, you know, he talked about that. He's like, you know, if I got a resume, I take athletes every time. Student athlete who has to sacrifice, who has to give up things, who knows exactly how to prioritize, you know, time management, like, you know, like, hey, my onboarding and training in the first year is like, it's easy for them. Like, this is nothing, folks, like, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, how do I do all that in the time? And they're like, yeah, it's just, what are you talking about? Like, I'm going to do all this and go to the gym at 10.
Yeah.
They got to figure it out.
Yeah. If you have the desire to achieve that part, you figure out, and so having figured that out as an athlete, in college has been really beneficial to my life. Even the physical stuff, like when I talk about needing to prioritize sleep and nutrition to
Yes.
PR on the track, that's also how you feel good in life and like get through a long day with enough energy to still focus on the things that matter, to
Yeah.
still be alert in a 4:30 meeting at the end of the day. That's pretty important,
Yeah.
and then to switch your brain to, mommy and spouse mode on the way home and not just show up completely unavailable for the people that you love. Right.
Right.
So
Not easy.
nutrition and sleep and stress management are every bit as important for me now as they were when I was competing.
Well, and you think about that lesson from that and transferring that into, um, COVID. We go through a pandemic, and now all of a sudden, your heightened level of your immune system is becoming very important. And your immune
Yeah,
system is basically garnered and gained by rest and nutrition, right? So you're like,
exactly.
whoa, wait a minute, like how I'm
Yeah,
taking care of myself all of a sudden plays a much bigger role in some things in prioritization that I think a lot of people we just overlook, right? We're just kind of like, I'll just eat the Snickers and another bag of potato chips. Like, wait a minute, like there's potential here of serious challenge.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it takes work, it takes forethought, it takes planning,
Yes.
but I do think that all my years of prioritizing the things that matter and also just going through adversity and then figuring out how to get through it and win anyway, it gives you like almost like a resume. It gives me like a core belief that even when I'm feeling really overwhelmed and nothing seems to be getting handled the way I'd like, I know that I'm going to figure out a way,
Mm.
because I have before, and I just have to get my mind right, get through that process of reacting and then figuring out what the next steps are. And I think, having that faith in yourself is really important.
Well, I think when we talk about winners find a way, part of that confidence is I've done it before. I've been
Yep.
down and I found a way before. So I'm
Yeah.
not too scared of, hey, it's not going well. I'll figure it out. Like
Yep.
I'm gonna work at it and get it right. Let me ask you a question. What do you think? You got a lot of powers, right? Like you're a world beater, right? So what do you think the superpower is that separates you from others and catapults you?
Superpower, huh? I think it is a core, really strong belief in myself and also in other people.
Hmm.
So I believe there's always a solution. I believe there's always a resolution. We just haven't figured it out yet
Yeah.
sometimes. And I think that belief leads to a level of persistence and resiliency. And also, I think it motivates the people around me. If I show that belief in them, and I feel like together we're going to find a way, I think that's probably the first thing that comes to my mind. And I think it feeds most of what I do. And so if there's anything else that might be considered a power, it probably stems from that.
Do you think you're an optimist?
Yeah, but with a heavy dose of realist.
All right. All right.
I'm
All right.
I'm not
I've
a
always
I'm
thought,
not a I'm not a everything is great all the time type person.
yeah,
I'm a let's look at what the reality is, but know that we're gonna figure out how to get through it.
and make it better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've held, it's interesting about the sleep and nutrition. I'm terrible about sleep. I need to be better for sure.
It's
And
it's a challenge. It's not as
oh,
easy as saying I'm
I
gonna
have 5
sleep
kids.
more. For some
Right.
people, it's really hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you should be
So
sleeping hard with five
yeah,
kids.
well, listen, there's no excuse, right? But like it is, you have got to be, um, our house. When you have 7 people running in a house, right?
Yeah.
It's always been how you run it is pretty critical. But my wife is highly, well-educated, nutrition, development, health, and she feeds us so well. And I gotta tell you, like, I don't get sick like ever. Like, and when I am, it like knocks me down for like 2 days, but it's like every 4 years or something, right?
Yeah.
And I'm it's like a superpower. Like when people go, hey, can you catch this flight and be here and jump in the morning and do this thing for us? And I'm like, yeah, I'm on. Like,
Yep.
I'll do it. I think my little trump card is like, let me just throw my nutrition, because like I don't
Yeah.
put stuff in my body that's gonna hinder like the next day and like stay with you like and
Right.
and and beat you down, right? So
Yep.
I've used that nutrition side forever, that I
Yep.
just don't go. Now that doesn't mean I don't have a sweet tooth or something like that, but
Sure. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
tough things that you can't recover very quickly from, I just don't have them in my system, right?
Yeah. It's just getting it right on 80% of the time and being really consistent. It's not
Yes.
about, I'm not every Sunday making out my 3 meals a day and putting them in
Yeah.
the fridge. I mean, I love to be that person, but I'm not. But I am planning to the extent that I'm not going to get home, at 7 p.m. and have nothing but, you know, s-
Microwave dinner.
a jar of peanut butter to spoon out of. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm doing enough to make sure that I can get what I need. I'm
Yep.
consistent enough that I don't let myself get, behind. Hydration is a part of that too, so planning hydration and really just developing good habits, because then it's not a chore. It's not like, oh, I
Yeah.
have to eat a salad right now, or oh, I have to eat
Well,
vegetables. It's like, this
I
is what's in my fridge.
I always loved, being in Europe, with this the standard operating of stop by the market and this is the vegetables and stuff I need for tonight, right? And it's like
Yeah.
fresh produce and like we're mixing it up and this is the plan, and it was like,
Hmm.
wow, like
Yeah.
there's some real value to that
There's
nutrition.
plenty of McDonald's over there too, but
What's
yeah,
that?
you're right. So there's plenty of McDonald's over there too, but you're right. You can
There's that
you
too,
can
right?
find the good or the bad. Yep.
Yeah. That and Kentucky Fried Chicken, like they're booming, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
so what if a core value or belief or action that you took when you were down that turned things for you? What do you think? Is there some value that you'd like to pass on to people? That you just say, hey, listen, when things go for me, like I can always turn to this value. Like I get back on course this way.
Um, One of my favorite quotes is from G.I. Jane,
Yeah.
and it's
Give me more.
yeah, and the Master Chief is reading from his book, and he reads. I feel like it's a poem. He says, "I never saw a wild thing feel sorry for itself." Something like, "A frozen bird will fall dead without ever having felt sorry for itself." And so I don't know why, I just always love that quote, but I love the movie, so I think that's part of it. But
Yeah.
for me, like, I let myself mope around when I'm upset about something for a certain amount of time. And then after not too long, I let myself do that. You got to get it out, you got to go through your process. I eventually just, like, that quote comes into my head. Like,
Hmm.
I never saw a wild thing feel sorry for itself,
Yeah.
meaning you're the wild thing. Stop feeling sorry for yourself
Yeah. You got to get up
and
and go for it.
start facing it and deal with it. And that is an empowering quote to me. It's not a stop feeling sorry for yourself, like, demeaning quote. It's an empowering quote because of that wild thing piece.
Yeah.
And it just motivates me to be the person that gets through this and sees the other side, as opposed to letting it consume you and walk all over you. So kind of taking the power back.
I want to take some, that's awesome. I want to take some quick fires at you on a couple questions because I know we're running out of time. But so few women in tech. Do you see that trend changing?
I do. I do think it's getting better. I think it's been socialized enough that people are talking about it. There are a lot of great programs across the country. I actually have, there's an intern at Dimensional Innovations where I work right now that is here because I taught her how to code in high when she was in high school through a volunteer teaching program.
Mm,
So I mean, those things matter, and they have a long-term effect. So sometimes you don't see like a huge result right away, but they do have an effect. So it's still a problem. The numbers are still not great, but I do think it's getting better.
so mentoring is a near and dear to your heart.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes. You've had a lot of success and won a lot. What's the biggest, what's the best battle that you've conquered in your lifetime?
Probably just my own demons. I used to be so hard on myself
Mm,
and just very kind of condescending and mean in my head. And I feel like I took that energy and turned it around to fight for me instead of against me. And it
mm. So like bad self-talk,
reverberates in my life. Huh?
bad self-talk.
Yeah.
How'd you turn it around?
A lot of fighting in my head. I
A
mean,
lot
I
of
remember
what?
in a lot of fighting in my head between
Yeah.
these two voices. I mean, I remember in high school doing this like project for some class, and it was like you draw something and you write something that fits within the drawing, and it was about this war between these two voices in my head
Mm,
that were, positive and negative.
yeah.
And so I feel like when I look back, I think, well, it's good that I acknowledged that it was happening,
Yeah.
right? Like as a high school, I acknowledged it was happening. I wrote about it. And, you know, not that I steadily made linear progress, but throughout my life, I've battled with that voice. And over time,
Yeah.
it's become a winning battle. Whereas she might like rear her head now and then, but I know how to deal with her.
Yeah.
And the default is not her, it's the voice that knows, that motivates me and that kind of thing. So I think that's a battle that anybody can overcome. It's an endurance event for sure.
Yeah, I would say, and I love that. An endurance event is, I was thinking about as you were talking about that, a bad self-talk is a very fierce competitor.
It
Like
is.
they
It's
don't,
the most formidable competitor. You can't do anything if that's
yeah,
going on in your head.
yeah,
It doesn't matter what else is going on,
yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, and it's not a rollover. Like, oh, hey, I told my voice there just to stop, and so it's over now.
No,
Like,
it's a
yeah,
journey.
you're gonna need something stronger than that. Like,
Yeah.
that's
I,
good.
I always say to people, talk to yourself the way your best friend would talk to you. Think
Yeah,
about it that way.
it's so true. And I think at this time, I've had a couple guys on. I had Vincent Lancy on. He wrote a book called Mr. Lancy Talks Mental Health. Mr. Lancy Talks Mental Health. And that's a big deal. That's a big deal right now in a pandemic. Everyone
Yeah,
got, guess what? If you don't like you, and all of a sudden you're in a pandemic and you got to be spending all this time with you, like
that's
I
rough.
see there's a lot of people I've seen, and I may be guilty of this. I don't know, but you get busy, and sometimes that's, hey, I'm busy because I don't want to spend too much time with me, and
Yeah,
because I'm fighting my fierce competitor here, and this
yeah,
is one of the ways I beat him. Like if I've only got an hour a day to actually finally sit down, I've already minimized the time in my head, right? And
yeah,
so I think there's some thought that, and then all of a sudden you go to this, hey, let's shut down. You got all this time for you, and like, I don't know if that's
yeah.
great.
Yeah, I think it's really important to get really comfortable with who's in your head, and I find that writing helps a lot. So I try to write down when I'm thinking my worst thoughts, and I write down when I'm thinking my best thoughts.
Journaling?
Because
Like you journal?
yeah, yeah, and yep, and also writing down when you have wins, because then you can go back and you can look, and sometimes writing down the negative thoughts you're having makes you realize how irrational they are.
Yes.
Like, come on, like this is not the truth here.
Yeah.
And then if you've also written down, your best moments and your best successes, you can see, oh, this is who you are at your
Yeah.
best. This is who you want to be. This is who you can be. So kind of that juxtaposition. I'm not someone who journals every single day. I journal in the very highs and the very lows, but I think it's really helpful.
Yeah. It's so good. When you've done all this, I mean, as athletes, we assess. I mean, we're constantly doing an audit of excellence, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so there's a lot of mirror test. I love the mirror test. Every morning you got to get in there, brush your teeth, and I've had a couple morning where I'm kind of hiding from it, like I don't want
Yeah.
you to look at me, right? And knowing I haven't really got it done the way I'd maybe want to, right? But what is something that everyone, when like you see that in the mirror, like the one thing that maybe a lot of people miss, that it's there for them if they'd reflect on it and see it, but they miss it. What do you think that one thing is?
I think your best self is in there. Your
Mm,
best self doesn't, it's not an accident. Your best self is in there. And if you don't feel that, then you got to do the work to find him or her, you know,
mm,
and to bring that person to the day instead of whatever you're getting in the moment. And I think what people miss is that they are entirely in control of that. They
yeah.
can make a decision as to how they want to talk to themselves, how they want to approach the day. They can figure out the proper triggers for themselves, whether that's getting up and exercising or meditating or listening to certain type of music. My mood, I found I can really change with music. And so
Yes.
that's a great thing. Then if you have your playlist or your genre that's your go-to to get you in the right mindset, then you know that about yourself. So
Yeah.
I think people miss how much they're in control of their own life and how they feel about it, to be honest.
Mm. That's awesome, man. I mean, I know our listeners see value today in this episode. I mean, I enjoyed learning about best self. I enjoyed learning about facing adversity, getting back to no regrets, do everything I can control, leave it on the line, and, you know, let the expectations out a little bit and let it fall. I enjoyed learning about managing stress, like how important that is when we go along, and how we take care of ourselves, putting ourselves first, our self-care, that persistence and resilience it requires to keep winning, and finding a way. And then the best self, I love that. Talk to you like your best friend talks to you, the people that admire you. And I'm a massive proponent of music, cause I love it, and been in it from like theater and everything from early age. But I tell you, as much as I'm a proponent, I also caution people with what they're putting in their minds, like some of the stuff
Sure.
that kids choose, and I'm like, that's awful. Like,
Mhm.
like thinking through this, like what you need in your mind is more positive, not stuff that's some stuff that's out there in some of the genres, right?
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so time before we go, best way to win. Is there something that you want to share with the listeners we did not touch on today?
Um, the last thing I would share is something I have kind of a conversation that's recent in my mind because it was a couple week long conversation with a good friend of mine. And it involved basically having a job offer that this person felt it was very scary because it was such an amazing offer. And so
Yeah.
that's supposed to be a great thing, right?
Yeah,
But I
right.
think there were feelings of inadequacy, some imposter syndrome, some wondering
Sure.
what is the catch, and
Yeah.
maybe there are things here that aren't as good as I'm thinking they are, and I'm going to figure it out and wish I had made this decision. And also just lots of questions about, well, what do they want from me? I'm not getting much clear direction, that kind of stuff. And I said, you know what? Be the expert that they're hiring you to be. They came to you, they want you for this role. That's very clear. What's getting in the way is your reaction to it and all these thoughts that you're putting
Mm,
in your head. Be the expert they want you to be. And that's something that I learned going up on the stage and speaking, is that the people in the audience are your biggest fans. They want you to do a great job.
yeah.
And so if you're feeling like you're not going to do a good job, that pressure's coming from you. They want you to get up there and just knock their socks off. And if you think
Right.
about it that way, that's actually very empowering. And
Mm,
so, I would think, go up there and be the person that they came to get inspiration from. And I think you can apply that to many other things in life, a meeting, a conversation, a project. And so that's what I would leave everybody with.
love it. Share your social media again on LinkedIn and Gaffigan, and on Twitter.
ANNGAFF and Gaff.
GAFF, yes.
Yep.
And her name's right there on her picture there. Then all right, so your quote, was that your quote of the day? Is it your go-to quote for when things are down? I know we were gonna do the quote of the day.
I never saw a wild thing feel sorry for itself.
Yeah, I love that.
Yep. That's it. I'm going with that one.
I love that. For everyone else, you can follow us on the Leadershipity YouTube channel. We are on leadershipity.com. You can find it either on all the social medias, either at Leadershipity or Trent M. Clark. We're at both. You can easily find us there. For me, I thought a lot about our show. We do a lot of things, and it's very important that for listeners, we want to continue to find the one percenters. And this is so great going into Tokyo to talk about the Olympics and everything that's going on. So this is great timing. We want to, if you'll rate us 5 stars, always love that. We work hard to find value delivering one percenters that come in and will deliver content for you. So that's so important to us, and we want to do that each and every time. So thankful for that. The Pyramid of Leadershipity, our ebook, is coming out soon. We hope you'll look for that. You can DM or email if you want to know more about that. We are super excited about all the idiots of leadership and talking about that pyramid. That's going to be super awesome, and looking very much forward to that. Do you have a closing remark for us, Anne?
I don't. Everybody go out there and talk to yourself nice. How about that?
I love that. I mean, we're just not seeing enough of that, how important that is, and that self-care, talking to yourself well, and being open and everything about that. That is absolutely critical. What I will close with for Anne here is, as I was thinking this week, I always take some time to think through the week and think through what we're talking about, who's going to be here, all the different conversations that we have. And a lot of things come to me, almost like as the week goes, we see different things that enter into your life, because your thought process, you're looking for opportunity to talk more about the issues that we face, who's going to come on, some of the challenges there, looking at the background story of where you've been. And that's always so great. So I always look for something that comes in. And one of the things that struck me was, I'm not sure, I think you may have posted it, actually. I saw this post, and it said, it was a quote by Ray Dalio, right? Who wrote Principles.
That could have been me.
Yeah. Never rule out a goal because you think it's unattainable.
Yep.
And I love it. We talked a lot about goals. Never rule out a goal because you think it's unattainable. I thought that was so important. I think it's what we talked a little bit about when you and I were kind of, hey, if I set this thing, maybe it's not the right goal at all. And so I don't know, like you said, if you'd have ruled out being the time trial champion in 2004, at the beginning of 2004, because you quote unquote didn't have the knowledge then that you'd have that ability 9 months later, because that's a long way away, right? 9 months. I mean, we're talking about almost 300 days. And a lot to happen.
I can't tell you how many times I have conversations at work and in life where someone just immediately shuts down a thought that they have after expressing it because they don't think there's any way it could happen. And it can be small things, or big things, right? And I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's an interesting idea. Let's talk about it. And sure, it might take more work than going and saying to somebody, we want to do this, and getting a yes. It might take some, political maneuvering, convincing, data backup, that kind of thing. But let's not shut it down just because we don't think it'll be accepted or possible or what have you. Let's seek it out. Let's suss it out and see if we can, at least exhaust the options before we completely say, never mind, because if you had that thought, there's a good reason. And so I'm always pushing people to make sure to explore all of the options and get as much information as you can before you just shut down a process.
That quote for me, thinking about you, it just landed for me. I mean, I just thought that is, winners find a way, and willing to talk about that opportunity. Just as you said, is it really unattainable? Like, there are 10 steps to everything, right? Like, we can back into those 10 steps. Somehow everybody got there. I tell a lot of people that road to elite, there is a clear pattern to it. Where everyone stumbles is it's not easy, right? But the path is actually very clear. Like,
Yeah.
there are just some principles that you can go in, and if you can follow those steps, but I mean, are you willing to make the sacrifices? Are you willing to put in the time? Do you really have this ability to have the mindset, the mentality, the self-discipline? There's so many things that are on top of that while it may even seem simple when you look at the 10 steps, they're not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Or known.
That's
Those
awesome.
10
And
steps might not even be known.
yeah, and I am so excited that you were on today. Thank you so much for joining us on the Winners Find a Way show. And until next Friday, we'll hope and look forward to seeing you then.
Thanks so much for having me, Trent.
Thank you for joining us for another Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark. If you love this episode, share this episode with your friends and follow us on whatever podcasting medium you're listening to. If you want more content from us, join us at leadershipity.com or the Leadershipity YouTube channel. You can find us on all the social media networks at either Trent M. Clark or Leadershipity. For our award-winning workshop, Win with Great Teams, you can find that page on LinkedIn as well as our corporate page, Leadershipity. If you want to win more, it starts with you today. Say it with me now. I have what it takes.